There we go. Good evening and welcome to the South County Fire Board of Commissioners regular board meeting for November 6, 2024. I'll go ahead and call us to order. Ask everybody to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Except for David.
All right, commissioners, we have, you have before you the draft agenda. And there's no additions for it. Is there anything else for the agenda? If not, I will move adoption of the agenda. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Fernhoff. It's been moved and seconded to adopt the agenda. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any discussion on the motion? If not, we'll move to a vote. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. That takes us then to the consent agenda, which includes the November 6, 2024 claims vouchers totaling $918,913.52. I will move the adoption of those claims vouchers in the consent agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been seconded by Commissioner Chan. It's been moved and seconded to adopt the consent agenda and the claims vouchers within. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any discussion on the motion? If not, we'll move to a vote. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. That moves us forward in the agenda then to approval of the meeting minutes. Item number 5, we have within that section, we have the October 8, 2024 work session and the October 15, 2024 regular meeting. I will move the adoption of both of those meeting minutes, October 8, October 15. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Wittes. It's been moved and seconded to adopt those two sets of meeting minutes. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any request for discussion on the motion? Not seeing any, we'll move to a vote. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. That moves us forward in the agenda to public comment. Is there any request for public comment? We'll start first in the room. Any request for public comment? Any request for public comment? If not, we'll then go online and see on our Zoom platform, and I'll turn to Ms. Blankenship and see, do we have any requests for comment on our Zoom platform?
We do not.
We don't. I'll come back to the room. Any requests for public comments? Yes, sir. Go ahead and
Say hi. Nicholson Associates Insurance. Give us a shout if there's anything, if you have any questions on anything. But we're here. She cooked up some nice stuff from your local bakery.
very good. Thank you. Okay, so nothing else then for public comment. We thank you. We will move forward in the agenda then to item number 7, which is the fire chief's report. Good evening, Chief Eastman.
Good evening, Chair Kenny, rest of the board, public staff. I've got several folks that are going to give, as part of the chief's report, we'll give you each a brief. Laura, if you go to the first slide, and I'll turn it over to Chief Isotelo to start.
Good evening. I'm happy to advise the board tonight. Long-term volunteer support firefighter Larry Slow served for 24 years. He started in 1988 with Fire District 1. He was here about 5 years. He left to go into the military, served his country, and about 10, 11 years later, he came back in and re-engaged with Fire District 1 and the RFA. And so all told, 24 years, has been a great member. He was one of the 4 that survived through the COVID and all the challenges of finding volunteers in that. Definitely has done his part, served his community well, and we wish him the best in his retirement and thank him for his service.
I'm going to turn it over to Christy. She's got a few things to talk to you about.
So the first is we want to thank everybody for attending the push-in of Engine 11. We just did that recently. So Engine 11 was really designed with response to an urban environment in mind. I know the firefighters and chiefs put a lot of work and thought into this fire engine. And so it was really nice to have the public come and help us push it in. The engine has a minimalized design, which allows it to carry more water and more fire hose than our past engines. And it cost about $880,000, a little cheaper than engines cost today. This engine was actually ordered in 2021 and was delayed due to some post-pandemic supply issues. And so we have a few events coming up. On Monday, we will be in Mill Creek to participate in the Veterans Day Parade, and we invite all of you to attend that. If you would like to come, we'd love to have you. And we will honor veterans. In Mill Creek will also be at events in Linwood and Mount Lake Terrace on Veterans Day. And on Tuesday, we'll join Support 7 in helping push in their new emergency response support vehicle at Station 21. We're really excited to help Support 7 welcome and dedicate this new vehicle, which plays such an important role in crisis and emergency response in our community. And thanks to the local firefighters union for helping support their mission to get a new vehicle. And then also next week on Thursday, we're going to be having a neighborhood night open house at Station 13 at Silver Firs Fire Station. And we would love all of you to attend that as well. And that's it.
David.
Commissioners, I just wanted to take a moment or two to share with you why we've got a little bit of a messy west wall and hopefully connect a few dots. You may recall me mentioning earlier in my tenure, my desire to bring some of my lean experience to bear on improvements in administrative processes here at the RFA. And we also obviously have before you a budget request for a couple of different things, optimization and technology, and possibly records changes as well. And I think all those things come together in some of the work that we were doing just earlier today, which part of it you see on the wall. Some of this we can do for ourselves, and some of it we're lucky enough to get free help, as it were. So it's kind of a cool thing. The Washington State Auditor's Office has a separate element, unlike the rest of the auditors that do lean work, and they train folks and organizations, and they actually facilitate workshops where you do the work to make changes to processes. So for about 6 hours today, we had the help from that office, somebody named Joanna Bailey, who's been great. She came out previously, did a little training at the RFA, and then work with a representative group, folks from HR, finance, public records, and ops to look at payroll changes generally and HR actions, how we're doing them currently and how we can do them more efficiently. We'll do another 5 or 6 hours tomorrow. And my hope is this kind of spreads, that we use this methodology, this thinking to keep looking at areas where we can be just that much better.
Chief Anderson, WSRB.
Yeah, good evening, Commissioners. So we have our WSRB, Washington Rating Bureau, rates us every 5 years, and it has not changed. We are a 3 still. We're going to have that report out for you next week.
Yeah, so remember, we told you in April that it was our time to get re-rated. I think it happened in 2018. Chief Anderson and his team took the lead. And the report, we got the report on the 1st of November. And it came to the Office of the Fire Chief's email, and because of some of the things I've been dealing with, I missed it until 2 days ago. And I guess I'm happy to say that we maintained our rating of 3. I'd like to read the document first, and then before the end of the week, we'll send the report out to the board. And then we also have a report a letter and a report for the city of Mount Lake Terrace, city of Briar, city of Edmonds, city of Mill Creek, and the city of Linwood also. So we'll work I'll have Susan work with Melissa, and between the two of them, we can make sure that the respective cities get their report and everybody remained at 3. So I'd like to thank staff, because there's a lot of work from staff's perspective goes into that. I did it the last time, and I'm happy to say that staff, I mean, the WSRB didn't want from anything. Staff gave them everything they needed and they turned it around really quickly. So that's on the WSRB. I have two additional things. We've done our reach out to the folks that own properties in the Mukilteo ILA annexation area. We thought it was going to be easy, just pick up the phone and call. I didn't realize I didn't have that data in the data sets that I have. As it turns out, of the people that live there, only one homeowner actually lives in the property. They're all owned by folks that don't live in Mukilteo. So Christy and her team drafted a letter, sent it to, because we had their address of the owners of the property, sent it to them. I want to say it was just over 2 weeks that they had it. We asked them if they had any questions about the annexation or wanted any information from us, had any concerns about the annexation, to please let us know by the 1st of November. And actually got no correspondence from any of the owners of the property. And so I wanted to report that to the board first. I will let Mayor Marine know. And then at probably not the next meeting, but the meeting after, if the board is okay with the Mukilteo ILA, we just need a motion, and I believe, and I'll confirm this, an action that you're affirmative with it and are okay with it, which is what the city of Mukilteo needs for the completion and execution of that with the county. So more to come on that. I just wanted to give a brief that we reached out and had no calls back for concern, and we did it a little differently than I thought maybe we were originally going to do it. But with the majority of the homeowners not living in the property, we wanted to make sure we talked to the folks that actually own the residence. And the last thing, this makes me really smile and proud of the organization. We had interviews, myself and the 3 assistant chiefs, with 17 folks that want to work here as firefighters and firefighter paramedics. And there's a very common theme, and we know we're a good organization and it's a sought after organization for people that want a career in the fire service to come. And I guess I want to let you know why. And I think it was half of the people, there was 8 of them that made this comment of why they're coming. And it's the interaction they have with our crews in the street. A lot of these folks work for other departments, or they work for the private ambulance companies that service the area. And it's their interaction with our firefighters and firefighter paramedics at the hospital. And we heard stories of folks on the private ambulance where our crews go over and help them clean up their cot and get things made. And by the time the private ambulance crew turns around and say, thank you, our crew's already gone, going on to the next thing. They comment, all of them, the fact that they go into the hospital and there is not everybody smiling. They're happy. They're pleasant. They talk. That stuff's happening at that level that, we can't make that happen. I mean, we can do a lot of things from my seats in the department, and the board can do a lot of things from the governance seat in the organization. But that is a piece that, that's the X factor for this organization, if you want to call it that. And I heard it no less than 9 times in the interviews of the 17 people we interviewed to come. And that's a testament to the folks and the men and women that work for this organization. And I will tell you, it's not just the folks in the street either, because I heard comments, one very specifically about their interaction with administrative staff. So it's not just the uniformed staff, it's this organization as a whole. And for somebody sitting in the seat being the fire chief, very, very proud moment for me as the fire chief of South County Fire, when I have folks that want to work here, and it's because of the interactions they've had with the folks that are out doing the work, and they're always smiling, they always have a good attitude, they're always willing to help, and they're not doing it for recognition. And so for the crews that are on, honestly, keep doing what you do, because it's why this organization is successful. It's why we're going to maintain being successful. It's a large reason why when we go ask the voters for things, we get a high approval rate. We in the administrative role have our part and the legislative body has their part. But that piece is real. And it's very clear, what's happening in this organization. And we often hear, things aren't that great. And you tend to hear the challenges that people are having from my seat. And I will tell you, when you see that in the street with people coming and validating what your people are doing when they interact with them, like I said, it was a proud moment, made me smile. And I feel it's important for you, the board, to hear that too. Because that is a true validation of where we are in an organization. And I'm proud of it. And I'm proud of the men and women that do the work. It's great for me to be able to tell you that. And I wish you could have all been in the interviews as they said it too, because it was a really cool time. And if Sean, Jason, or Todd want to say anything, they can. But that will close my chief's report for tonight, unless I missed something, because it's been that kind of a week for me. And staff is here to answer any other questions that you may have.
Commissioner Lawrence.
Yes, on this same theme, one of my neighbors whose mother is in her 90s has had South County down there a few times. And my friend had nothing but great things to say about the crews that have come down there.
Commissioner Chan.
Yeah, I think two things. I've been there for a long time. I hardly see any people just transfer laterally to other department. That shows that, and most of them are really retired. So that shows that they love the job, they love organizations. I think more importantly, I think that is that we are a really financially stable organizations. I think people knows about it because we've gone through many times situation. Some department had to lay off people and that type of thing. I think financial stability is the most important part to me. That both commissioner and the administration work really hard every year on the budget. And I just also mentioned too about they mentioned about lean program. I think that's a very good program, but it's not just the process. Make everybody staff think about it. What can I improve? In the administration part of it is the thinking that get us to get efficiency and everything else. So I thank you, David, for continue that program in there.
Other questions? Commissioner Farnoff.
Yeah, I just want to echo Chief's sentiments about just the folks that we have that work for us. I don't think we have, at least in my travels, and I've come through many different departments in 3 different states, and I can say that those folks that I engage with are above just 5 stars. I don't know how, if it's 10 stars, so let's make it 10 stars. That's absolutely amazing. And for the most part, I think even as a recipient of your services one day, having to be taken to the hospital, I can tell you that I've been raving about what our department does. So thank you very much to everybody that's out there that's doing the job.
Other questions? Go ahead, Chief Maxwell.
Thank you, Commissioner. Not to belabor this, but I mean, I think we all know, treat people the way you want them to treat others. And the theme was that you treat your people well, you care for them. These were mainly, young people, and they said, I want to come to an organization that's going to invest in me as a human, and treat me like a human. So it was some really interesting patterns that are different than the old guys see up here of what people want. So, yeah, just wanted to add that. Thanks.
Great. A question from Mr. Cullen. The lean program, is that just within HR, the work that's being done?
This particular project crosses HR and finance. Sorry, this particular project crosses HR and finance.
Okay.
But I think it has applications elsewhere. And I made sure that we had, for example, Amy Nay in the room, public records. because some of her work looking at a record system, looking at the technology that might support what we're currently doing or what we could do ties into this as well. So it's sort of generating sort of cross-pollination and thought beyond just the project in front of us.
That's it's positive to hear that that's the state auditor's office is like associated with that, because but I want to draw the connection to, we had the state auditor's office like IT division, or they came and did a computer type software audit or risk assessment for us sometime like in the last year to a year and a quarter, and that got positive reviews. So that's interesting that the second one, because the state auditor's office, I know we also got our state audit came out in the last week. You know, they you know, it's not always real positive. So
Well, and we just had a meeting, the finance did, with that group, and Ms. Bailey, who is the lean person, makes very clear that she's on the other side of a wall
yeah.
in said office, just so we can speak freely and really talk about what needs to be different.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's genuinely helpful. It's actually a very good thing that the state is doing.
That's interesting. The state's being helpful. That's great. Chief Eastman, I have a question for you. You said that you only had one person that actually lived in that potential annexation zone. And you sent a letter, and I'm wondering, if there's only one person that lives there, is it worth it to go out and knock on their door and cover all the bases to say, we've done everything we can to try to communicate?
So how many residents were there?
So there were 9 property owners, I believe 13 residences. And of the 9 property owners, 1 resided in a property that was within the annexation area.
So to be honest, when we did that, I guess I made the decision to send a letter in lieu. We could have gone to that one property owner and talked to them specifically. I just didn't. I guess to say we looked at what the best option was, at least to get to everybody, and that's how we did it. I guess that was my decision to make and my call. So.
Okay. And then I had, and we are going to get the Washington State Ratings Bureau report that will come out to us. 'Cause
Yeah.
that's always interesting to be able to see.
Yeah, what I'll do is I'll send, I got an email from Eric Cummings. I'll just forward that email to the board, because it will have not just the RFA's letter and the report, but it'll also have the reports for each one of our individual cities. And I'll make sure the board gets the same information that I have. And then what we'll do is we'll make sure that shortly after you get it, we'll make sure that the contract or the cities that have annexed in and the city of Edmonds each get their letter, and then the report specific to their city at the same. Yeah. So I hope before the end of the week
great.
that you guys will look for it in your department email. And if there's any questions, we can chat at either the next meeting. We can, if we need to.
Yeah, I think we'll actually put
you
it
know.
on the agenda
Okay.
for if
Yep.
there's any questions, because
Yep.
I just want to be sure we highlight that, because that can be a big issue sometimes for people, and
Yep.
it kind of just rolls along at a low level over time, but it can impact people's insurance, fire insurance. So it's worth highlighting when it comes
Yep.
out.
So we'll make sure of working with the chair to have that on hopefully the work session next week, and then we'll get it out. And in that case, it'll be in the packets also.
Sounds good. Any other questions for the chief on the chief's report? Commissioner Chan, go ahead.
No, I would think just along with your comments about the Mercantile annexation, I understand many of them are business. Maybe it's a good idea to go there and talk to the manager, and the manager will relay the message to the owner. That might it show that we try our best to have the contact and correspondence. Thank you.
Any other questions for the chief on the chief's report? If not, thank you, Chief Eastman. That moves us forward then in the agenda to our legal report, and we have Mr. Davis on Zoom with us. Good evening.
Good evening, commissioners. I don't have much to talk about tonight, but I did want to say that it was great to meet everybody over at those who could attend the WFCA conference. Thought it was a good conference this year. A lot of good information was shared. Chief Eastman kept me a little busier than I expected to over there at the conference, but it was all good. Sometimes, we discuss things at the legal committee that are interesting, kind of new cutting edge issues. And this year, we talked about one of the Supreme Court decisions that was issued in this last term. And the case was called Loper Bright, and it overruled a longstanding precedent that, and it's called the Chevron doctrine. And what that doctrine said is that courts will defer to agencies' interpretation of the law. So the way this works is Congress passes a law, and then the agencies who are in charge of the laws, they interpret that and pass regulations after obtaining public comment. And generally speaking, when there's a question, if the statute's ambiguous, they defer to the agency's interpretation. Supreme Court said, well, we get to exercise our discretion as to whether the agency even had the authority, the statutory authority, to make that interpretation in the first place. And so there was a suggestion that maybe this kind of rationale would trickle down to the state level. If you think about it, at the federal level, you've got the EEOC that administers the discrimination laws. Department of Labor enforces the Fair Labor Standards Act. And we've got a lot of decisions or opinions, by agencies as well as regulations interpreting laws like that. And so this is kind of a big change at the federal level. It doesn't have any direct impact on the state. The suggestion was, however, that, a clever attorney at the state level could start making the same argument. I think that's unlikely in the state of Washington. I think our courts are going to continue to be deferential to, state agencies like Department of Labor and Industries and so forth that pass regulations. But certainly there are laws that we have to comply with at the federal level, Fair Labor Standards Act and discrimination laws and those kinds of things where agencies have issued interpretations. And so it remains to be seen just what might be declared and beyond agencies' authority to opine or to issue regulations on those laws. So certainly there'll be changes that are coming down the pike. Although at the state level, I think that it'll probably remain kind of status quo. But again, it was a good conference. I was glad to be able to participate in that and see those of you who were able to attend. And with that, that concludes my report.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Davis. Any questions for Mr. Davis on the legal report? Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next up, then, moving forward in the agenda is the union report. And I believe we have Vice President Matt Armstrong with us. Good evening.
Good evening, commissioners. Good evening, staff. I don't have much to say tonight, as kind of usual. President Moore usually steals my thunder. But the calls keep rolling in. Our guys keep rolling on these calls and doing a great job. It's like I've said before, I will continue to say we have some of the greatest people here, and I'm honored to work with them. Also, we would like to thank administration and also commissioners. I'd like to thank you guys for allowing us to or hearing us in regards to staffing and our position on staffing. We appreciate the forum to be able to speak and express our concerns or our opinions. And we look forward to moving forward and continuing to work together to better not only our membership, but the community we serve. And with that, that concludes my report. If you have any other questions, be happy to answer any.
Great. Thank you. Any questions from the board? Any questions? No, very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
That moves us forward in the agenda to unfinished business. Item 10A is our 2025 budget and budget deliberations with our Chief Financial Officer, Chris Bothwell, and Chief Eastman. Start with Mr. Bothwell. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you, Chair. I just have 3 routine updates for you tonight. And these are just things that have happened since we released the proposed budget or since we met last. The first is you probably received an email about the increase or the change in rates for our legal counsel. So I wanted you to know that we did crunch the numbers on that. There is a slight difference between what we have in the budget or what we'd assumed and that increase. It's less than $15,000 based on our usage over the last 3 years. And so, excuse me, we're not proposing a change for that, but I wanted to give you a heads up that we did take a look at that. Excuse me. The second item is we received 2 grants since the last time we talked. We received a grant for cold weather kits, and then a grant for supplies and equipment for the ACT program. The total of those is $12,500. Those are budget neutral because we have revenue and expenditures that offset for that. And again, we're not proposing a budget amendment for those, but just something that came in since the last time. And then the final one is that GEMT, we did finally receive the amounts that we would have normally received in May. We did get that last week. So we can close that out. That was factored into the ending fund balance that was in the budget document when we published it. So no change there either, but just closing the loop on that. And that's what I have.
Yes, Commissioner Fernhoff.
Thank you, CFO Bothwell. You said that the grant was for the ACT program, the ACT program?
Yeah, one of the grants, there's 2.
Where'd the grants come from?
The Verdant funded the cold weather kits.
Sorry.
I'll send an email to
You can make
Melissa
it
to
up
you
if
all.
you want. That's good.
Couldn't find it.
That's fine. That's fine. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Mr. Bothwell, did you have anything else for the 2025 budget?
That's it for tonight.
No. And Chief Eastman, did you have anything else for the 2025 budget?
No, I know we haven't received any questions or any additional information from the board that I've or CFO Bothwell has had. So we are, I have nothing to add at this time.
Sounds good. Any questions, comments, discussion from the board about either of the 3 items that Mr. Bothwell mentioned or about the 2025 budget in general, the draft 2025 budget? Not seeing any requests for discussion about it. So this is our next to last meeting regarding the budget will be next Tuesday at our work session. And then the 3rd meeting of the month will be the passage. The budget will be on for passage. So I highly encourage commissioners, if there are any last minute considerations for amendments one way or another regarding the budget, please, please, please bring them to the meeting next time, because for the final meeting the following Tuesday, Mr. Bothwell needs to have all the documents ready to go. There's all of those resolutions that we'll be passing. And not that you can't bring a motion to amend the budget as when we move to pass it at the 3rd meeting, you certainly can. It's hard for staff. And so if there is something substantive to discuss, next Tuesday is the best time to bring that forward. Not that you can't at the 3rd meeting, but I'm just encouraging everybody, please bring that forward next Tuesday if possible. And that way we can have a smooth landing to the budget and the 3rd meeting. And that also gives time for staff to discuss anything that might come up next Tuesday for final passage the following Tuesday. So I just provide that caveat in a discussion about the budget. Great. All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Bothwell. Then we'll move forward in the agenda then to item 10B, which is the amended and restated RFA plan, South County Fire amended plan for Edmonds, involving the city of Edmonds. So let me turn that over to you, Chief Eastman.
I'm going to see if Commissioner Wittes wants to start. And give you maybe some of the committee report stuff now to kind of let you know where we were and how we got here before, if you want to, Commissioner Wittes.
So we've had 6 meetings now, 5, 6, no. And went back and forth, did quite a bit of arm wrestling, if you want to call it that, to hit some highlights on it. There's a question about station ownership, how that would work. All the other RFA participants just signed over the stations, the taxpayers paid for it. That was just kind of the way that went. Edmonds was looking at maybe a little different model with that. We kind of held firm on that. It stays the same as all the other ones would be. Station 17 was an issue they brought up, which is all on one plot, just like Station 19 is in Mountley Terrace. And we said we could work out something that would be similar to Station 19. So we went through that area. We also went through an issue with contract payments. They were looking if they could possibly get like the second half of it for free, things like that. We explained to them we couldn't do that. That's a gift of public funds. Also came up was benefit charge. They were talking to us about if they could get us to increase it. We kind of went back with it's up to legislative body here on how that works and how that's done. And so that was a no to that one. Representation, they were requesting 2 liaisons instead of 1. We held firm with just 1 on that one. There is some documentation in there that Chief will go over that I believe they have to be either a city employee or city resident. Is that what it was?
Either an employee of the RFA or an elected
Elected
official.
official. The discussion about the level 1 liability, the cost to Snow 911, transport fees on who gets those and how that goes. If there's a contract of any sort or how that would work, that would be at parity, and what we call parity or describe parity as is the same cost that with the citizens within the RFA pay. So it's basically based on assessed value and a benefit charge. They weren't too happy with that one, just on the idea. They look at the AV and Edmonds being significantly more than it is elsewhere. Went through all the numbers with it. City of Edmonds is about in the middle. Briar's first, Mill Creek second. Edmonds is third as far as assessed value when you go per houses or per person. Discussed a plan B, and that plan B was more like what would happen if something was to fail. The levy failed, what would happen then? And we're still working on that one, coming up with different rationale on how to do that. I know that was done in the city of Mill Creek also. They did bring up the 2-station model, and we kind of put that one to bed, saying there's no such thing as a 2-station model. I guess at the time or earlier, they thought it could be done. You could probably do maybe a different modeling with down there, and that's what I explained. If you had no stations at all and you're going to start building them brand new, but there's no way you could actually move them around and afford that kind of issue. They went and brought up the waterfront about what we could do differently to protect the waterfront, and we made sure that they understood there's nothing more we're going to do to it than is today. You can't afford to put a station over there or staff of it. We went through the history of it and how we have it set up to cross over the trains if they're there, and how to do fire service just like it's been done for several years. They brought up station staffing, if we could lock in the staffing numbers of what would be there, and we basically said, no, it is staffing what we do throughout the same organization or the whole organization the way it is, basically up to the chief and the board of how that is. The last thing it kind of brought up was census data for using for mapping for plans, and it's spelled out in the RCW. They wanted a different year, wasn't it? I believe it was.
They wanted to use 2025 or
Yeah.
2026 to change it. And we need to use the 2020 census data
And-
based on statute.
Yeah, and so statute claims it said right in on what it was. So if you want to go over the rest of the document on kind of how we ended up with it.
Yeah, so I guess I'll start if you go to your packet, and I'm pulled up the restated RFA plan. And I'll go over the highlights of the change. If you look at the agenda bill kind of states the major changes in the ILA. So I'll quick go over the table of contents. We added sections 10, 11, and 12. For whatever reason, when we adopted the plan with Briar and annexation, or Briar and Montlake Terrace annex, we forgot to put Briar and Montlake Terrace in the table of contents, and hence the appendices page numbers need to change. Some of this is administrative, and let's see, if you go to section 1, really what we did is we just made it true to form. Instead of, it just says, it used to say it anticipated that on April 25th, the city of Montlake Terrace would annex in. It said effective August 1st of 2023, the cities did annex in. So we updated, administrative changes to make it reflect what really happened. And I'm just going to go the definition section. We just edited definition 1.8 that added, the District 1's now dissolved and the city of Montlake Terrace and Briar are now in. And in this case, because it's allowing City of Edmonds to annex in, it includes Edmonds as a participating jurisdiction in the RFA. And then we did some cleanup in 1.1.3. And I apologize, I can't compare the page numbers. It's page 6 on my document. Formation of the Fire Authority, we also did some administrative updates to section C, and deleted some language that didn't need to be there anymore as a result of where we are. Those are administrative deletions made by legal counsel. If you go to section 4, the jurisdictional boundaries, it talks about the district interlocal agreements, and we delete Edmonds, we delete Malt Lake Terrace, we delete Briar. And we could actually delete the Mukilteo one too, now that I'm looking at it. And so it just, once again, it updates those documents to administratively make it correct to where we are today because those ILAs don't exist. Governance, here's one of the, I would say this is a substantive change. It's in section 2.2. Staff and the intergovernmental committee talked about this. I think when we first started the RFA, we talked about an ex officio, which made it be an elected official from the represented agency that annexes in would have an ex officio position on the board. Now we went to a liaison position just as a matter of practice because of the way our meetings conflict with other city meetings and you know, ultimately they have chosen to bring staff to fill that role. And so we changed to keep intent with where I think the original RFA plan was, is we want them to be some form of representative of the city, whether they're an employee or an elected, because the intent of that is for them to be able to bring information back to the city until such time as the citizens of the annexed in jurisdiction has the ability to actually run for office and become a commissioner. And so that is a change. I believe it's a substantive change. I think it adds language to clarify what I believe the original intent is they're connected with the city in some fashion at the end. So that's an addition in the governance section. Let's see, section 6, there's really no changes. Section 7, no changes. Section 8, we added purchasing on mine, it's page 17. It's section E under operations and services, and it has to do with purchasing and for time to time, the government shall formally adopt written policies on purchases of goods, equipments, materials, public works, professional services. And Melissa, I know we talked about this when we reviewed it. I don't remember when the board addressed this and changed it, but we needed to make sure it was added into the RFA plan. And so that's why that's been included. And then you have section 9 is the city of Mill Creek. And there's some edits in section 9 specific to just making it current, right? So there's been some administrative changes. Same thing with the section 10, which is the city of Malt Lake Terrace, and section 11, which is the city of Briar. And what they did is made them to the current. In other words, it's not saying they're annexing in, it says they're actually annexed in. Section 12 is a new section, which actually once the board by resolution accepts the restated and amended RFA plan, section 12 is what authorizes from the RFA's perspective, the city of Edmonds to annex into the RFA. And it's really the step that needs to be done from us for then the city of Edmonds then to move forward, adopt the RFA plan, and then go through the process of putting it on the ballot for the citizens of Edmonds to, you know, vote on whether they want to come in the RFA or not. And so very similar to the other 3 cities that have already, well, the other 4 cities that have already annexed in, because Linwood was part of the original document. So revising of the plan approval, there's dates that need to be filled in based on what everybody's process is. If you recall, on June 11th is when the city gave us their resolution of requesting annexation. Then we will have a resolution to pass the amended plan. And then the city then will do the same to adopt the plan. And then they have the ability to go to audit. We talk about fire marshal services, inspection services, the transition of fire and emergency medical services. There's really no transition because we already provide the service. Transmission of property and assets. What this basically says is that station 16 and 20 will be transferred to the city at no cost to the RFA. We deal with station 17 a little bit different. As a result of station 17 being on the same city property, it doesn't have property just alone assigned to the station itself. It's very similar to station 19 as it's on the city complex. We're dealing in the current plan, we're dealing with station 17 the same way we did with station 19. Station 17 would remain property of the city. We would be able to use it for no dollars. We would treat it as if we owned it. We would have the ability through, and we'll talk about this in the pre-annexation agreement, we'd have the ability to deal with what we need to do within the city or within the station to make it serviceable. If we needed to make changes, we'd be allowed to do that. And then if we no longer use it as a fire station, and we made some major remodels to it, those would be depreciated very similar to what we did with Station 19. And then that, whatever that is, would happen. And then if we no longer use it as a fire station, we revert it back to the city. There's no city employees. Finances, we talk about transport fees. In this case, we'll be entitled to collect transport fees. We've had some conversations about when does that happen? And there's a couple different ways we can do that. And I guess I should go back. There's a conversation about most of the RFA plans. I got a little bit ahead of myself. Most of the RFA plans took effect August 1st. And the reason the August 1st date is, if you recall, our borders have to be set by the 1st of August for us to collect taxes the following year. And so it's based on the borders of the RFA at that point in time. With the city of Edmonds, we've talked in the conversations with them about the soonest that the city could annex, or actually effective date would be June 1st. It takes, I think the election's the 22nd of April, if I remember correctly. Around the 22nd of May is when it would be certified. And so if you start June 1, is the soonest it could happen. And we've talked about if we take over the 1st of June, like we've done with some of the other liabilities, we would take on the dispatch responsibility, the left liability responsibility, and the transport fees. It's probably cleaner if we collect the transport fees in the RFA starting as effective as when they are, would be June 1st or August 1st, depending on when that is. And as a result of the way the current contract's written, we remit those. And so the way we've crafted this is that the city would still get the credit for the transport fees and the total bill. So the intent of the current ILA holds true. It's just that we would be collecting the transport fees at the time they're officially in the RFA, and we would deal with the remaining cost of the contract and offset what we collect from within the city limit transport fees with what the city owns. And so the city stays whole with the current ILA, if that makes sense. I guess I'll stop to make sure everybody understands what I'm saying.
How's that, does that differ from the other cities on that transport fee arrangement?
It is, isn't it? So we've only had one other city that we did, which was Malt Lake Terrace, right? So the city of Linwood, we didn't have any transport fees. With the city of Mill Creek, and the city of Briar, we collected transport fees starting from August 1st. But we didn't remit transport fees back as part of an ILA. In the context of Edmonds, with our current ILA, we remit back the transport fees that the RFA collects within the city limits back to the city. That's the way the current contract's written with the city of Edmonds. And so we could do this one of two ways. We could just keep remitting it back to them and start collecting transport fees January 1 of 26. It actually makes more sense that we collect the transport fees the minute they are part of us, and then make it right by them and treat the transport fees as if, so the city would get credit for those and what they owe us, because that's the way our current agreement reads with the city of Edmonds. So it's holding true to the contract we have with the city through the end of 25. It's just an odd way of doing it that makes things from my perspective easier on us. Maybe a little bit more difficult for my finance folks. But it is probably the right way to do it moving forward. So let's see. And then at the time that they annex in, we take over their left liability, we take over their payments for dispatch, which is consistent with what we've done. And then there was a conversation at the with the intergovernmental committee. One of the challenges we have with the city of Edmonds, and this is that they're no longer in a contract with DEM in January. And I want to say it's a $65,000 to be a city that's contracted with DEM. From the fire chief's perspective, as you know, we are very integrated in with DEM from our agency. We have been for the last 15, 16, 17 years. I mean, we had one of our DCs sitting at the EOC last night during elections, right? We are connected with DEM. We have a really good relationship with DEM. And one of the challenges we have from an operational perspective, without having the city of Edmonds as part of DEM, it makes some of the operational things different for that one city, because now we have to go through whoever they pick as their emergency management representative. And it's usually, you're now assigned, Tag, you're it. Versus what we do now, which is we call the DEM duty officer, and we get what we need because everybody's part of DEM. And so one of the things we talked about was, potentially for the next 3 years until Edmonds gets fiscally back on their feet, as part of them annexing in and the pre-annexation agreement that goes along with this, is that we would cover DEM for the next 3 years to ensure that they're part of DEM. For us, and the way we were looking at it is this organization, and I say this organization, us, this administrative staff, I believe the board and the people doing the work already sees the Edmonds residents as our people. I mean, they are the people we are here to serve. And so having them have that connection, have emergency management be connected for the next 3 years is positive for us as an organization. It's beneficial to the citizens we're serving. And it's something that I guess it's something we could do different than the rest of the cities that have annexed in, just based on the scenario that we're in now. So that is something that's different than we've done with everybody else. It's got about a $65,000 price tag on it that is currently been talked about, and it's been talked about in the conversations we've had with the city of Edmonds, and is currently part of the annexation of Edmonds coming in for 25, 26, and 27. And then if you go on, and then we updated a map. We've added the properties for the 3 Edmonds stations. We added our land, newly acquired land, to the appendixes, and we added in an updated org chart. And that's pretty much the RFA restated amended plan. And I guess with that, I'll pause. And first I'll ask Commissioner Witt, did I miss anything based on the conversations we'll be having, or did I hit all the high and the important topics?
Real good.
Was there more, Chief?
No, I guess if we pause there and take any questions or any, from the board based on the restated plan, and then we'll go into we'll do that first. When we're done with that, we'll go into the pre-annexation agreement, if that's okay.
Okay. Any questions on the amended RFA plan? Commissioner Teofilek. Go ahead.
For the DEM, like 3-year payment plan that we would do, is there anything that we can do to have them like sign something that they would start paying thereafter that would have some teeth to it?
I think we can. I think we can. I don't think we've had that conversation with them yet. But I think that's a conversation we could have with the city. We've not discussed that component of it yet, Commissioner Tafila, just so you know. But it's clearly something we could do.
Yeah, I feel comfortable with it as long as we can make sure that they pay it for it going forward after the 3 years, to be fair to the other cities.
Commissioner Fernhoff.
Yes, Chief, what is it within a contractual relationship that we would gain by going directly with DEM versus the city? I know the city has most of the time a designated emergency manager. And then, of course, the mayor, through process of declaring an emergency, opens up or stamps the times of which they're eligible for reimbursement. For us, define, if you could, just define what that relationship looks by contrast to having an emergency manager within their ranks.
So we don't have anything official, right? Although I have staff working on it, right? Because one of the things that makes us unique is that we have a connection with DEM because the citizens in the unincorporated part pay for DEM through their general property tax. And our cities all pay a per capita to be part of it. But the RFA itself doesn't have that same kind of relationship with DEM, right? And so I, as the chief, look at DEM and I look at the director of emergency management as our director of emergency management philosophically. And then we make sure we work with them. The challenge though is we don't have a relationship where we can say, okay, now we're working on this plan or this plan or this plan like the cities do. Now I will tell you, Chief Anderson and Chief Curtis are working on what would a agreement with us and DEM look like to function more like what the cities do, because I think we're big enough now to where, we fill support functions for them. I've sat in ESF4, I've been able to manage the EOC and do those functions. But really for us to duplicate something, and if you watch what happened during the pandemic, the bottom line is we all worked under DEM. If you had your own city DEM, it was okay, but we really all, when the things get really bad, we work for DEM. So we're working on what would a written down paper document look like for us to have a different form of relationship with DEM. We're still working on it. I know they're waiting on getting stuff back from the group, and then we need to review it. And then at some point early next year, we'll bring it back and start having a conversation with the board about what our vision is, and probably bring the director and some of the DEM staff in to kind of give you an idea of that concept. So we're working on it. I don't have a good answer for you.
Okay.
Except we're working on it.
Yeah, just, I know the lines of authority and delegation of authority play a big role in that particular space. And then if you are representing a city, it actually is kind of ideal in a lot of ways, right? Because you have resources and you can obligate those resources. One thing that strikes me right off the bat is oftentimes we as an organization will train citizenry in like CERT, but the municipality is very hesitant or doesn't have the resources to activate and manage those CERT volunteers. So if they actually fell under your jurisdiction with a direct line to DEM, that's a force multiplier that you can engage in the community.
Yeah, so there's, depending on where this conversation goes, it can go a lot of different places. And we still have a lot of work to do from a staff's perspective in working with our DEM partner to figure out what that might or might not look like.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Commissioner Chan next.
I think the biggest challenge you have is they have an opposition group, and they keep on calculating what the true cost of the us is. I don't want to it's very difficult to explain to them that once you join it, there's no, because, you're probably higher and that type of thing. But I think another argument we probably get reminding them, I look at the administration, the medium age, they're the highest of all the one we annex into. Linwood being the youngest one. Therefore, the call wise also there's a whole lot of them in there, but we cannot go into detail because your situation we have to do anything different. So and I'm concerned about that. No matter what, we will be your fire department. No, I think they need to come to us and say they want to join, not because we were, we love to serve them, but if they don't want to join, it's up to them. I just want to make sure that is the message out there. If they thinking they can do better, it's very difficult for us to continue our conversation to explaining and justify every single cost to it. Because I know Snow Isle Library did not, and when they do the annexing to them, they don't come and say, hey, how many books did you borrow or whatever. Basically, that's how taxing system work. And then of course, and then you understand that we don't spend every dime and dollar that we collect. We have reserve fund. Well, the reserve fund is for building a new station, maintaining the new station, buying new truck, and that type of thing, which does not show in our expenses every year. So I think that's the clear message we need to give to them.
Other questions for the chief on the amended RFA plan?
Just wanted to throw out-
Commissioner Wittes.
One of the other things, Commissioner Chan talked about the citizens group and how they are. We did meet with them, Commissioner Chan, myself and the chief. They brought up, what was it, 16 point some million that they thought they could do it for when we're looking at 19. They didn't give us any documentation. We didn't have any of that. We did talk to them about the value that we have to put into that city, which was quite different for them to understand because they didn't understand that right away. And that was Station 20. It needs rebuilt. Yeah, and that's, we're looking at what, $17 million now to do one. Value Village is probably going to be 30 million, something like that. No idea. That was an area that they didn't look at, didn't think about. So when we brought those things up, myself and then Commissioner Chan, they started understanding that there's a lot more to it that we do than just do the responses. I think it was a fairly good meeting, went well. So that was pretty good, but that was something I don't know if Edmonds really grasped onto either, that when we brought that up, that every other city that's been part of the RFA have brought relatively new buildings in that didn't need a lot of work, where that's not the case with Edmonds. So there is initial investment or a long-term investment there that's going to be significantly more than the other cities were. Just wanted to add that to it.
Any other questions or comments on pre-annexation? RFA plan? Let's move on, Chief, to pre-annexation agreement.
So the pre-annexation agreement, I know it's in your packet. If you don't mind, I'm going to go through my paper one because I got notes and different things. So I want to make sure I don't miss anything. So this pre-annexation agreement is very similar to the pre-annexation agreements of all the other three cities that have annexed in. They go through the end of 25 for the most part. If you look at section 3.2.2, we talk about how the transport fees, it basically says we'll collect the transport fees and credit those transport fees on the unspent portion of the city's fire department budget calendar for 2025. That goes along with what I said about the transport fees. We talk about if the annexation fails, you don't have a temporary agreement yet, but when we get to the very end, I'll give you what we've talked about what a temporary service agreement would look like. There's a couple reasons why we don't have one yet, and we'll talk about that later. It's very specific in this document that the current ILA terminates in December 31st of 2025 and no longer exists. And we did that very deliberately. And so we talk about the continued provisions of fire and emergency medical services by contract, which is similar to what we did with the other that the current ILA pays for and takes us through the end of 25. We do have a temporary service agreement. It's not in your packet. We'll talk about it a little bit, and there'll be one that will follow after. Transfer of property assets, again, we talked the detailed conversation about 16 and 20 being transferred to the RFA via quitclaim deed. The fixtures, furnishings, records, all that come over. Station 17, we have a use agreement for Station 17, very similar to Station 19 as an exhibit to the pre-annexation agreement. Assignments, we should give advance notice to 911, and that's consistent with what we did in the other cities. That's Section 5. Fire marshal services, again, this one's a little bit different. As we move forward and the way we've changed the fire marshal agreements we've had with our cities, there's a fire marshal agreement that's part of the pre-annexation agreement that converts how we do current fire marshal work with the city and converts it to the way we're doing it, like with Linwood and anticipated Montlake Terrace and the rest of the contract cities, where we give them our fee schedule, they put it in their structure, and then when we do fire cause and determinate, or we do fire code work, fees are remitted back to us, and we do the fire cause and determination under statute. It's our responsibility to do, and that will adjust accordingly, but it moves them to that style. And there's an interlocal agreement that talks about the fire service, like we did with the rest of our cities that are already in, or doing with the rest of our cities are in. Section 7, the waiver of GMT funds. We'll talk about that in exec session. Retention of public records is straightforward. Dispute resolution, straightforward. The miscellaneous, you got exhibits. Let's see, conflict plan, non-waiver. I think the rest of the document is pretty straightforward. If you go back to page 8, you got a quick claim deed for, I think it's Station 16 is the first one. You'll have a quick claim deed for Station 20. And obviously, we probably, at the end, there may be some editing of language as we have our last couple meetings with the city of Edmonds to work some of the details out. For some reason, there's some concern, and I'm not sure where this comes from, that if we build and build a fire station at the new or the Valley Village property at 216th and 99, that we would just close Station 20 and abandon it altogether. And the city goes, well, we should get the station back if you do that. And so we're putting some provision in there that allows the city to buy those back. Of the city, current language is the city does an appraisal, they would get credit for the current appraised value, and then would have to pay the difference if we no longer use it as a fire station and they want that back. For example, Station 20 needs to be torn down and rebuilt. If we rebuild Station 20, it has a very different value. So that's kind of where we started. I think that may change a couple times. If you go back and look at some of the other languages we've had with quitclaim deeds, and Richard may know some of this better, is I think with Station 14 and 15, they have the right of first refusal at terms negotiated at the time that they go back. I think we did something a little bit different with Station 76 with Mill Creek. And so there's some flexibility with these. I don't see us not using Station 20 as a fire station for a long, long time. I don't see us not using Station 16 as a fire station for a long, long time. And so I think we're trying to address some of the concerns that the city has about something that's really not going to happen. Go ahead.
Yeah, just to add to it, because it took me a little bit by surprise when I was trying to understand it too. They were referring to using an area like Station 20, that we just abandoned that whole area. It wasn't that Because when it was like they get it back and it's, well, we may have to sell it because we may want to move 2 blocks down the road or 3 blocks down the road. Well, they were all okay with that. So that was an issue. It was just the thought, if we totally cleared out of the area. And it was a little hard to grasp when they're saying that, but I understand what they're getting at. What would be the likelihood of us doing that we shut down stations? The idea was we could, well, in theory, we can shut them all down. Yeah, I mean, but we can't do that. So that's what the conversation was about, not about selling it, moving down the street, not about doing anything like that. It'd be like totally getting rid of that whole area that we were going to respond from station 16 and 17. So that's what Chief's referred to.
So that's the pre-annexation agreement. The pre-annexation agreement has 3 exhibits to it. One of the exhibits is the temporary services agreement. We'll talk about that last. Exhibit 4, which is the use agreement, which you have in your packet. It's very similar to the Station 19 use agreement. We haven't talked about this much. I don't think we have some of the same challenges we had with, for example, with Station 19, where we needed to have parking places in the station, in the city's complex. Unlike Station 15, that the property split, was this much of the parking places, so we needed to have an easement behind the station to park. I don't think that Station 17 has some of the challenges that we've had at the other 2. But there may be something we don't know about. We haven't had, most of the conversations have been with 2 city council people and the mayor. And some of this conversation, we need to talk to some of the director level to make sure that if there's something we need to put in the document that we don't know, like Station 15 had their fiber line for the whole city complex come through Station 15. Some things that we may not know about, just to make sure we put the legal documentation in place. So there's probably amendments to this coming when staff actually gets to talk to other staff and make sure that we didn't miss something that we wouldn't know and their elected team wouldn't know. But I'm not going to read the document to you. I think it's pretty straightforward based on what we saw with 19. And so that's the use agreement for Station 17. And then the last document that you have in your packet is the interlocal for fire code official services. Very similar to, I think it's based off the Montt Lake Terrace document. It's one you've seen before, and it's Exhibit 5 in the pre-annexation agreement. Unless you want to go over it, we've gone over it, and we're going to go over it a bunch more times with Linwood's document, Briar's document, and Mill Creek's document. So it's there, and I know you guys have reviewed it. So I'll pause there before I get to the temporary services agreement. So the pre-annexation agreement, Station 17 use agreement, and the fire marshal agreement. Is there any questions, comments on those before I get to maybe the outline of what we're talking about for a temporary services agreement?
I don't think any questions, Chief. Go ahead.
So the temporary services agreement. So we've not shared this with the city of Edmonds yet. Part of it is part of the conversations we've been having with Edmonds. We've been driving the annexation conversation, and everything we've talked about for the most part has been relation to our annexation. There's still the issue out there that they want to compare annexation with a long-term contract. And they know what a long-term contract is. It's parity. Parity means they pay the mill rate of the fire levy, the mill rate of the EMS levy, and I can calculate the benefit charge. What they may not know is as we move forward with an ILA, they're not getting transport fees. Right? We're not going to remit transport fees anymore. Or at least I don't believe we are. We're not drafting it that they do. But coming back to the temporary services agreement, it's prudent for the city to know that they have fire service in 26 if for whatever reason we're not successful at the ballot and I'm assuming April of 25. The temporary service agreement right now is a 1-year deal. It gets them through the end of 26. We have parity in it as the cost. Um, we have transport fees are not remitted back. They stay with the RFA. We give them 11 people on duty every day. But how those stations are staffed and what they're staffed with becomes the soul of the RFA gets to choose that. In other words, the board and myself. In other words, it's not prescriptive anymore in the agreement. We don't have the individual metrics of reporting requirements. They fall under our standard of cover. The standard of cover we adopted in the RFA, it's not that different than what the city of Edmonds already had. It's what we already report on. Now, there is, because of where the city is from a structural perspective in their budget and their deficit, we want to be good partners with the city. And so there has been conversations from the intergovernmental and staff. And one of the things that we've been thinking about is, Station 20, we have Esperance there. And if the vote's not successful, is there the opportunity to have a cost for service being slightly less than parity, and the RFA gets Station 20? From a staff's perspective, if they weren't successful the first time, which I don't believe is going to be the case, I think going to ballot, and I think we'll be successful at the ballot if the citizens get a chance to vote on where they want the fire service to come from. But with Esperance and with the south part of the RFA, Station 20 it would be an asset for the RFA. And there's a potential that if the city of Edmonds isn't able to make the annexation happen, and in the terms that we're talking about with a short-term agreement versus a long-term agreement, and not knowing where that relationship ends or where it goes, having Station 20 for us for operational purposes makes sense. And so is there a way to incorporate that into the temporary services agreement to shore up that service delivery on behalf of the RFA, and in return maybe make the financial impacts of the city a little bit less. Now, those are conversations we've had. We have not had the conversation with the board. That's kind of the outline we've been talking. The initial outline right now is what I said before. It doesn't include 20 in any of that. It's parity's parity. I think we've made that abundantly clear what parity is and our definition of parity. But we haven't had a lot of the other detailed conversation like transport fees. If you look at some of the things they published, they look at transport fees still being part of revenue that they can offset cost. And, if you look at what we did with Mill Creek in the temporary service agreement, you look at what we were talking about with Briar, Montlake Terrace, we're consistent with transport fees staying in the RFA with regards to that. So the contract is truly less. It's nothing like what the current agreement we have. And it's for a year right now, with the intention that they'd go back to ballot. Although we were very careful about not saying you shall go back to ballot on this date, because we all know there's political realities that you don't want to force going back to a ballot that you may not be successful. And so that's kind of the framework and maybe an option. So you got the framework of a temporary service agreement and then maybe a potential option A. But that's the guts of the agreement. And we haven't actually provided it to the city of Edmonds yet. I think we wanted to talk kind of get a litmus test to where the board was at with the context of that. And we want to make sure that the temporary services agreement conversation is exactly that. It's if you go, it's you're going to ballot. Your plan A is annexation, and don't connect that with a contract for service, right? Because they're not the same thing. This is very specific that you're going down the path of annexation. So, and they still want to know what a contract costs, and I don't know how we tell them often it's parity, and In 2024, it's 19.4 million. I mean, it's a pretty straightforward number for the city. So any questions on or comments or on the temporary service agreement?
Commissioner Lawrence, then Commissioner Fernhoff. Commissioner Lawrence.
Are we done with is this the last segment for, all right. So let's say they annex in, the vote that passes. Does the city have any ability to undo that?
So I'm going to turn that over to Mr. Davis, if that's okay with you.
No, there's no, so when a city annexes into a fire district, there's actually a statutory process to withdraw from that. But there is no similar process in the RFA statute for a city to withdraw once they become a participating jurisdiction, unless that action starts at the RFA level. And then the city agrees. But the city can't initiate that and effectuate a withdrawal on its own.
Commissioner Fernhoff.
Yes, back to the temporary agreement. I'm sensing that's a contingency plan, right? Okay, so in that spirit, they are offered this at 19 something million dollars at parity, which is what they would have paid anyway if they were if they had annexed in. But they're also still paying their own 911. Is that correct? During that 1 year period?
So we could do that a couple different ways, right? So I think if they're paying parity, it would, in my opinion, it would make sense that we pay the 911 cost.
Okay.
But we wouldn't take their left liability because that liability still resides with them, and I don't believe we can take it because they're still under contract, right? So now we could say, no, you pay your own left liability too, or you pay your own dispatch too. But I think there's conversations to be had there. I think our initial conversation between Commissioner Wittes and myself and staff was that the option to pay the dispatch cost when you're paying full fare makes sense. And that's the fact that we don't remit transport fees either, right? So we're going to take the true revenue or resource stream that we should get, and as a result, we'll pay the fire service.
Can you put a dollar
Dispatch?
figure towards that?
412,000 is their fire dispatch side's 412,000 for 2025.
Okay, for what they get for transport?
Nope, sorry, that's dispatch. The transport fee is about 1.2 million.
1.2. So we have to add the 19 and the 1.2 and so forth as they're out of pocket if we didn't absorb that. So it would really be attractive to them to sort of get a sense if we took those on for that 1 year, what annexation would actually start to feel like and alleviating their budget.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Commissioner Rowland.
Just on that, if they're paying parity, I would assume the expectation on their side is that we would pay for all the things that we would normally pay for if they were in the RFA paying parity, because that's what parity covers. But there would also need to be something for administrative costs. And, if we did this 1 year extension, we know we're going to have to be going through and spending lots of time on staff's part and otherwise to take another bite at the apple, set everything up. And I just from the necessary costs of, dealing with contract status, that would be above and beyond a parity as like a little admin fee.
That's
or
not,
what is the thought?
staff wasn't thinking that. Staff was thinking if they're paying if they're paying parity, then we would do the work we normally do. Now, remember, under contract, the fire marshal work is done very differently. In other words, they have to pay for that a la carte over and above, right? And so the additional cost in this game, because we don't have the statutory authority to fire code work under a contract, that the way we're currently getting paid, they pay for 1 3/4 FTEs, they would have to pay that over and above a la carte outside of the parity conversation. So Commissioner Rowland, honestly, it's in the context of the workload for staff to actually reload and go forward, they're bringing, if they're paying parity, I wouldn't recommend we added administrative costs to that. I think it's part of course of doing what we do and managing a contract like we do with the rest of the cities, and we don't add that to that. Especially if they're paying the equivalent of what the taxpayers pay. I think that's just part of what the administrative staff would do, and it's just a function to do, and we would do it. So we haven't thought about that, so you know, it's not, we have not considered that to date.
Other questions? Commissioner
Not,
Rowland?
not a question. I would just ask that we put an agenda item on our working session to handle any additional issues that, I mean, there's a lot to go through here. So I would just ask that we put an agenda item for next week.
Absolutely, yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Commissioner Furnoff?
Yeah, I just want to really thank staff. This is not an easy process. You're doing a lot of out of the box thinking, and you're keeping track of all the moving pieces and parts. And I think that's a tribute to the organization and everybody within the organization that's had a voice. Certainly the board, because we're not taking this lightly and we're looking at all options. And I love the fact that we are at least looking at contingency planning. We know what the ultimate goal should be, which is annexation. And when you start comparing the numbers, I hope the city, takes into account that, they'll be paying for things that are above and beyond if annexation is not the route. So yeah, just as they say in the nautical services, bravo Zulu.
Any other discussion on this item? We'll have it on the agenda next week. Yes, Chief Eastman.
I'd like to give a little bit about where their public safety, the committee we're talking to, what their timeline is. I think they would like us, if we can get to a place with the agreements, to have them approved before the end of the month. I know we have a busy agenda on the last regular scheduled meeting of the month. Depending on where we go, I don't know if Commissioner Wittes has mentioned it to you, Commissioner Kenny, but potentially having a specific meeting sometime before Thanksgiving just to approve. If we have a conversation at the work session, we'll have another meeting with the City of Edmonds, potentially have another conversation at the end of our meeting in the last meeting, scheduled meeting of the month. But they would like to be in a place where the first meeting in December, I think, is where Councilman Tibbetts was going, to be able to bring this before their council to move forward with annexation. So I just want the board to know what we've been asked of a timeline. And as we continue to have the conversations we're having, I don't know what the will of the board is for potentially a special meeting if we needed it to help meet the timeline for the City of Edmonds. But I'm not saying we need to do it yet, but if we could at least consider or have it as a consideration as we move forward, if we get to a place where the RFA is in a good place and is in a position to approve documents to give it to the City of Edmonds. That's kind of the timeline they're looking at. And I just wanted to make sure the board knew that Tibbetts, brought that forward to us at the last meeting.
Commissioner Furnoff.
No, Chief, thank you for bringing that up. And I think it's imperative that we listen to the city and that we are lockstep with them and meet them in any condition that we can. If it's a special session or whatever it takes, I think that we owe them that respect.
I appreciate that. Thanks.
Any other discussion? If not, we are at our 8:30 break time. Why don't we go ahead and take a 10-minute break here from 8:30 to 8:40, come back at 8:40, and we'll take on the next item, which is the interlocal agreement for fire marshal services with the City of Linwood. So we'll be in a 10-minute recess. Thank you.
I know where you're going.
All right, we are ready to go back. We are ready to go back on the record after our brief recess, and we are going to pick up our agenda in item number 10C, which is the interlocal agreement for fire marshal services with the City of Linwood. And that'll be either Chief Eastman or Chief Anderson.
Should be Chief Anderson tonight.
So commissioners, welcome back from your break. And so 10C, we have item here for action, which is the interlocal agreement for fire prevention services with the city of Linwood, which is in your packet. And as you recall, you reviewed that week, I think it was last meeting that you had where we brought that through. And so tonight, looking for approval from the board for the chief to go ahead and get signatures for that document. And then we can return that back over to Linwood for their signatures and file it away. So, looking for approval. The city of Linwood has approved this, correct? So they've seen it, they've gone through it, they've already approved this document. The next thing after this we'll bring to you next meeting or within the next 2 meetings would be the fee schedule. Looking for more discussion and further action on that as well. So I'm going to turn it over to the board for questions.
And Chief Anderson, on the fee schedule, you were, if I recall, you were working to try and make that consistent amongst the cities that would be
Correct.
part of it, that we would be serving. Okay.
That's correct.
Okay. Are there other questions on the Linwood Fire Marshal's Office ILA? Any questions about that for Chief Anderson, Chief Eastman? Any discussion, any general discussion about it? If not, I'll go ahead and make a motion that we approve the interlocal agreement with the city of Linwood for fire prevention services, the Fire Marshal's Office ILA. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Wittes. It's been moved and seconded to authorize that interlocal agreement. Is there discussion on the motion? Any discussion on the motion? If not, we will move to a vote. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next up in the agenda is moving on to new business, item 11 and 11A, which is the interlocal agreement with Central Woodby Fire and Rescue for a use of a medic unit. Chief Eastman, I'll start with you.
Yeah, so Chief Curtis is staff that actually's taken this. He just couldn't be here tonight because of family. And for you that don't know, he was at the EOC yesterday till about 11 o'clock last night as a result that they opened the EOC for the election. So, and James had a family commitment tonight. So just briefly, Central Woodby is in a position where they may need to take on BLS transport responsibilities as a result of some of the things happening. They're currently a hospital-based ALS provider, and they are challenged just like everybody else with the supply chain challenges and getting something ordered. There's a delay. I had the privilege of meeting Chief Helm in Spokane, and I know a couple of the other commissioners did. I will tell you, he's a fire chief that's very grateful for the relationship that he has specifically with Chief Curtis and now with South County Fire, and willingness to help him be able to provide services to the citizens of Central Woodby. This has ended up being something a little bit greater than just us providing a transport unit for them to start their service until they can get the purchase that they need done because of supply chain. And what they're, when you have Rich Davis and the attorney's talk, you got to kind of do a trade and you got to get something for something. And really what this did is part of what we get from Central Woodby is when we have a Marine response, they'll launch Marine 5 and respond with us. And for those that have done Marine response in a previous life, I did that. I can tell you having more than one resource in the water is an appropriate thing for 2 reasons. One is it helps you search more area faster, which is vital when you talk about the cold water we're dealing with, specifically somebody in the water. And 2, we don't always go out in the best conditions. And so having more than one responder out there is also there for us, the responders, if for whatever reason we have a firefighter go overboard or we have something happen, and having another resource out doing the same work, responding to the same call, becomes a really important piece. I think that's going to evolve into something greater over time because I see our Marine unit being dispatched when they have a Marine rescue. We have a 15-minute, I want to say it's 15, I'm looking at Chief Isatella, about 15 minutes for us to get within their water area. Now, their boat's not always in the water, so sometimes they have to trailer it, so they have a little bit of a delay. But the reality is we actually are in a position to where this agreement's now going to foster a relationship and enhance our Marine response as a result of them asking for an aid car. And I think it's a relationship that will go far longer than the time they need an aid car. And I think that's awesome. And I don't think we knew that's where it was going to go. But I think the long-term relationship we now have with Central Wood, because it will continue. We have now enhanced the Marine response for the citizens of the RFA by having now a relationship with an agency that we didn't before. So before you is the resolution or is the ILA that actually allows us to loan them the transport unit. And obviously in return, we get, we'll call and have Marine 5 respond. And I will tell you the work of Marine 16 and Marine 5 will continue to work long after this ILA is no longer in play. So with that, I'll take any questions, and this is on the agenda for action tonight if the board so chooses.
Questions for the chief? Questions for the chief? Commissioner Fernhoff.
Yeah, I just want to say, I think this is great. This is a demonstration of partnerships and relationships across the region. And without this kind of just extending first off a hand and then going even further, this is really a remarkable thing. I know I had spent probably more than most people had time with the chief, and a remarkable individual, very forward thinking. They have a combination department, which is interesting. And then perhaps at some point, we could even explore some ideas about how maybe some of our volunteers who don't do IDLH might be able to be lent out in some capacity as a part of that vision as well. Thank you, sir.
Other questions for the chief on the issue? Commissioner Chan, go ahead.
Yeah, I used to run Mosquito Fleet, which is doing a lot of things out on the Whidbey Islands and stuff like that. Now, how fast is the Marine 5? The speed wise.
Chan, I don't know exactly their speed. I know that if they're in the water, they have about a 15. That's the 15-minute response time from Central Woodby where they launch their boat to get into the waters near Edmonds. And so I think the two boats are fairly comparable from a speed perspective. I don't know the specifics on their Marine unit. So
my question is that this is the first time I ever heard about this, and we lend them a unit, right? An ambulance. For how long and how? I don't know. Do we have extra? I mean, that's I'm trying to justify myself. We never heard about you need support from Whidbey Island, and now it's just so far away. Is that really? I mean, calculation wise, is that plus and minuses? Are we where are we at?
Well, we're not diminishing the resource capability of the RFA to provide the spare medic unit to them. And it just turns out that from an operational perspective, it sounds like Central Woodby is a long way away, but when it comes to the Marine response, they're actually a true partner when it comes to Marine response that I don't think initially, at least I didn't think of. So I actually think this works in a way, Commissioner Chan. I think it does fall in line with we're giving them a resource that they truly do need. And they're in turn going to provide a marine resource that I will tell you, when we need it, we're going to need it too. So, and it's not going to take away the capabilities of the RFA. And I think the unit that we're giving them is due to be surplused anyway. And so we're going to have them use it until such time as they don't need it anymore. And then we will continue through the surplus process with that unit.
Okay, but okay, I guess I didn't know all the detail. I haven't got a chance to read all of that. So they basically will loan them the unit indefinitely until until they get their own.
I think it talks
Commissioner-
about the fact that they're going to use it for operational needs and for up to 36 months because of the time frame it takes for them to get their unit. So we're just using and loaning the unit to bridge the gap until they can get the units they ordered in service. Does that
And
help
yet-
answer your question, Commissioner Chan?
Yeah, help me a little bit. Then also surplus. I mean, so the condition of the ambulance is kind of almost at the end of its life. Is that what it is?
Yeah. Yes, correct.
Okay. I'm going to abstain from this because I don't have enough in my mind. How does that work? All right.
Commissioner Lawrence.
And they maintain it, their cost. Okay.
So I'll just say that it's, as long as we don't need it, I think it's nice. And if we can do it, if we can help out a smaller district, somewhat near us, it's a good thing to do. So, okay, any other questions on this issue? If not, I will move that we adopt the interlocal agreement with Central Woodby Fire and Rescue for the use of our medic unit in exchange for their agreement to assist us with Marine 5. It's been seconded by Commissioner Fernhoff on that motion. Moved and seconded. Is there discussion on the motion? Any discussion on the motion? Commissioner Fernhoff.
Yes, sir. I'm assuming the rig's going to be rebranded.
I'm assuming that too, but I can't say that for a fact. Like I said, I didn't get that kind of detail from
I get
Chief
curiosity
Curtis.
questions from the islanders if the.
Yeah. I think that's their
Rig.
intent, but and I think they have a little bit of runway before they need to put that in service. I think it's the end of the year, if I'm not mistaken, that they need to take on the BLS responsibility. So I would assume the chief's going to want to decal it for his agency.
Right. Thank you, sir.
Any other discussion on the motion to approve the ILA? Any other discussion? Commissioner
I have
Rowland?
a discussion.
Yeah,
I
Commissioner
just-
Rowland, wait, well, hold on, Commissioner Chan. Commissioner Rowland first, then Commissioner Chan. Commissioner Rowland.
If it is rebranded and everything after the 36 months, we get it back, we have to pay to rebrand it to our standards, or what's the?
So
I missed that.
No, I think the intent for this unit was for it to be surplused for us. And so what we're doing is the chief there knows the condition of the rig. And so my assumption, Commissioner Rowland, is if they do rebrand it and we will get it back, then it will go through our surplus process. And now, if it needs to go back in service for whatever the reason, something happens, I can't imagine that Chief Helm won't make that right and rebrand and those kind of things. We'll from an administrative perspective, make that right.
All right.
And
Commissioner
I
Chan.
can just jump on. I might
I'm
just
sorry?
say that the agreement does provide
Davis.
that. Sorry, the agreement does provide that the unit is going to be returned in the same condition it was received by Central Woodby. So any rebranding would need to happen by Central Woodby before it's returned. I should also say that if for some reason South County Fire did need the unit within this 36-month period, it could request it back and the agreement would end at that time and we'd get it returned to us.
All right, thank you.
Commissioner Chan, go ahead.
I just on the record, it's not that in the past we give surplus to Head Islands and we gave one to Linwood Rotary Club for sending down. It's not I'm against it, but I just don't like the process. It looked like a hatch out very quickly and now just this meeting to decide it. So I explaining that's why I'm abstaining from the vote.
Very good. Any other discussion on the motion? Any other discussion on the motion? If not, we'll move to a vote. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, motion passes with one abstention, Commissioner Chan.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Okay, that moves us forward in the agenda then to item 12, which is committee updates. Committee updates, that will start with Capital Facilities Plan Committee with Commissioner Lawrence.
Nothing to report.
Okay, very good. Finance and Human Resources, Commissioner Chan.
Actually, Chris is the current temporary chair.
Ah, well, Commissioner Teofilak.
Yeah, this month we're not going to have a meeting just to a lack of subjects to discuss.
That sounds good. Next up, intergovernmental with Commissioner Wittes. Anything else to add?
Nothing else to add.
We've heard a lot from you tonight.
Thank you.
All right. Then we have Snow 911 with Commissioner Fernhoff.
Business as usual at the last meeting. They will be moving all meetings to virtual settings from here to the end of the year, or at least the foreseeable future. Was it 6 months? Yeah, 6 months that they're going to be doing.
I would add that they did a huge update on the 1st.
Sunday night.
So Sunday night, there was a huge update to CAD and CAD mobile. So, to my understanding, there was a small glitch, but I think it's been addressed.
Yeah.
Right? So, and this was a heavy lift one that actually they didn't go a whole lot longer, and the one glitch they had was identified quickly and resolved quickly. So, this was for those that have been following what's been going on with 911, this was an actual major update that I think they postponed at least once, maybe twice before they did it. So the other big news from 911 is they did that update on Sunday.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, and then the intention of suspension of the meetings to virtual is that when they resume in-person meetings, they want to do it at the new facility and show it off. So that's all I have, sir.
Very good. Thank you. That takes us then to commissioner comments. To start with commissioner comments, if you're interested, Snohomish Fire Commissioners has its meeting tomorrow night, hybrid meeting, both in person and online on Zoom. It'll be at Surfers Old Fire District 7 headquarters, the Clearview Station 71. So not too far away. If you're interested, pizza at 6:30, they say, or we'll be online on their Zoom platform on at 7 o'clock. Kurt Mills from Snow 911 is the guest speaker. Other commissioner comments?
Commissioner.
Commissioner Chan, go ahead.
Yeah, can you send me the link?
I did late last night.
Okay. Can you send it to my private, David? Can Melissa send that to me? Because I have difficulty. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Other commissioner comments? Any other commissioner comments? Okay. Next up, we have an executive session. We have a number of items to review the performance of a public employee pursuant to RCW 4230-110-1G and collective bargaining pursuant to 4230-144A and B. Potential litigation, 3 items of that, 4230-110-1I and collective bargaining pursuant to 4230-144A and B. We will call that for 45 minutes to start with, and we do plan to take action at the conclusion of executive session, coming back to regular session. So we'll take a brief recess as we head back to executive session, which will be from 9 to 9:45 to start with. Thank you.
South County Fire regular board meeting is called back to session at 10 p.m. The executive session has been extended for 20 minutes.
We are back from executive session. It is 10:40 p.m. We are back to regular session And next, I have a motion that the board deny the Heller grievance appeal. That's the IAF Local 1828 grievance appeal of the Chief Eastman's decision. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Wittes. Been moved and seconded to deny the Heller grievance appeal. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any discussion on the motion? If not, I'll move to a vote. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 4-1 in favor of denying the appeal. And that is the decision. And is there anything else to come before the board? If not, our next meeting is next Tuesday. Sorry, Ms. Blankenship.
Would you like to call that vote again? Chris Teofilak is actually online. He wasn't brought into the regular session and was not allowed to vote.
Sure.
How do you want to?
I'm happy to take up his vote. Chris, can you hear us?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes, so I can hear you now. So we've got the vote on the Heller grievance appeal, deny my motion, seconded by Commissioner Wittes to deny the Heller grievance appeal. And I guess we can take the vote again, if that okay? Or you can just state what your vote is on denying the Heller grievance appeal, that motion?
Yeah, I was with the majority, so it'd have been a 5-1.
Okay, all right. So he votes in the majority. So the vote is 5-1 to deny the Heller grievance appeal. Our next meeting is next Tuesday, 7 p.m. And with that, we have no other business to come before the board. Oh, and I should just note, we will, as we typically do, we will do a brief letter of denial just to put it in writing to reflect the board's decision. I know that's been an issue in the past, just so we have a letter to 1828, IAF Local 1828, reflecting that in writing. Okay, with that, nothing else to come before the board. Without objection, we are adjourned. Thank you.